Are you ready to jam out with color printing? You should be, because nothing says rock like chromolithography. Literally. Hello and welcome to a new episode of Bite-Sized Book History. I'm your host, Allie Alvis, who you may know better as Book Historia. I'm a book historian and curator of special collections at the Winterthur Library, part of the Winterthur Museum, Garden, and Library located just outside Wilmington, Delaware. You all probably think of me as a historian of old books. Medieval illuminated manuscripts, printed stuff from the 17th century, that kind of thing. But since getting my job at the Winterthur Library, I must confess I've strayed to the dark side. I've gotten really into a subject from the 19th century. And that subject is chromolithography. Like many bibliographic terms, the secret to chromolithography is in the name. Chromo meaning color, litho meaning rock or stone, and graphy meaning writing. Yes, stone. Unlike printing processes that rely on wood, such as woodcut relief prints, or metal, like copperplate engraving, a chromolithograph print is done with stone. Well, actually multiple stones, but we'll get there in a bit. To understand chromolithography, we must first get to know its parent process, lithography. The German playwright Alois Senefelder, born in 1771, was the unlikely inventor of lithography. But he did not set out to be a printing pioneer. His invention came as a result of trying to find a way to reproduce and distribute his plays more cheaply in 1798. He considered engraving them onto copper plates, instead of sending them to be typeset at a printer. But copper was expensive, and as an untrained engraver, he didn't have the money to spend on lots of blank copper plates. To conserve materials, Senefelder developed a sort of correction fluid to cover up his mistakes. A mixture of wax, soap, lamp black, and water. This correction fluid proved to be the key to lithography. When Senefelder applied it to limestone, a resource that was plentiful where he lived in Bavaria, he found that it created an area that repelled water. Meanwhile, the untreated areas of the stone absorbed water. Using the idea that you can't mix oil and water, Senefelder realized that by wetting the whole stone and applying oily printing ink, only the areas with the correction fluid, which repels water, remember, accepted the ink. The rest of the wet stone repelled the oily ink. After his discovery, Senefelder abandoned playwriting for lithography printing, which became far more lucrative. In the years after Senefelder's initial discovery, there were a number of technological advancements that made the lithography process somewhat easier. Special transfer paper was developed so printers no longer needed to draw directly onto the stones, and the drawing itself was made more efficient through the use of grease pencils, kind of like crayons. But in order to create color plates with lithography, they still had to be colored in by hand. For the most part in this period, lithography could only be used to print in one color. This technique can be seen in publications such as Daniel Giraud Elliott's 1863 ornithological work, Monograph of the Pittidae. The printed lines of the lithograph are identifiable by their textured appearance, while the watercolor added on top is very smooth. A man named Godefroy Engelmann changed the game in 1837 with an efficient method of four-color printing. Engelmann understood that layering the primary colors of red, blue, and yellow, black being the fourth color of his process, yielded secondary colors. More color bang for your buck. This is chromolithography. Over time, printers elaborated on this concept with additional base colors, creating a vast number of color possibilities. But this method is not as straightforward as it sounds. In order to create a finished multicolor image, the original image has to be first broken down into its component colors, each of which would have their own printing stone. The same piece of paper would be printed with each of the color stones one at a time, building up a full-color image. Although chromolithography was ultimately cheaper and faster than traditional printing with black ink and coloring by hand, it took a while for it to catch on outside of producing high-quality art prints. The first large-scale chromolithographic publication was Owen Jones's Grammar of Ornament in 1856. Owen Jones is one of the most significant designers of the 19th century, and he had exacting standards for his publications. After being unsatisfied with the work of other printers, he set up his own chromolithography presses. Jones used up to 20 different colors, 20 stones, to produce each of the 112 plates in the first edition of Grammar of Ornament. But Grammar, in its large format and with its many plates, was an expensive work. To fund it, and to recoup costs from an earlier publication flop, Jones was also printing things like chromolithographed playing cards, menus, and gift books, as well as illustrations for others' publications. It was these items, cheap but beautiful, that introduced the masses to chromolithography. The combination of improved technology and increased public awareness caused chromolithography to spread like wildfire on both sides of the Atlantic, in both book illustrations and elsewhere. Businesses very quickly realized the eye-catching potential of chromolithography, and the 19th century saw a veritable explosion of colorful advertising ephemera. Stationers began to carry beautiful chromolithographed paper fancies, specifically made to be collected and pasted into scrapbooks. And cards of all kinds flooded the postal service in a rainbow of correspondence, from simple postcards to complex valentines. I'll talk more about the history of these kinds of ephemera in the next episode, but it suffices to say that these cheap, often free, chromolithographed paper goods brought color to people's lives in a volume never before seen. The golden age of true chromolithography ends in the early 20th century, when technological advances moved the process to metal plates that could be used on rotary presses. That does it for this episode of Bite-Sized Book History. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future video topics, please let me know in the comments. And make sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on my book history content. I'll see you next time, and remember, don't bite your books.